Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. This is a little bit not ultra whatever, but I don't have a graphics person in the background, so I'm not quite sure how to make this look better than this. But this is the full lineup of everybody, and you're even going to get the countdown in the second half of this commentary. But here's all the Zerg separated by where I would say they're so pro Gosu basic. So and I also separated by like BSL level to keep things a little bit more cohesive. I'm not sure where people are specifically as far as their current ranking, like C through these. I think all these guys are above C through S. They're all very good players actually, and they're kind of all at the stage. There's like a range. So for example, I feel like Manadog could probably take out Exit. Exit has in the past taken out Raz. So you can see where it's, and that's kind of how you can think of the range within this interior grouping. It's like Hasu can sometimes beat Pro and Gosu, but a little bit less reliable. Chobo, a little bit less likely to beat Pro Gosu, so on and so forth. I think you guys get it. But let's go ahead and talk about the players really fast. Striker, going into this, is looked at the favorite to win it all. Kaido, a very, very strong Zerg behind him, definitely the second best in the tournament from most arguments. Urbmon, depending on what level of practice he is in, is a strong threat, although between him and some of the other guys, I would actually put him at less likely to win the entire thing, but definitely he can knock some higher contenders out, and if he plays his best, could win the entire thing, potentially, depending on how things go. Machine, is not in practice, I don't think, but at various points in time, he has been the #1 Zerg in the United States, and so he's a very good player, and he plays particularly well when there is a solid meta, which there is. You have Tarpman. A small factoid, I'm a little bit biased towards Tarpman in a positive way. I've known Tarpman longer than I've known any of these other guys. I've known some of these other guys a long time. I've known Tarpman longer than I've known Artosis, which is nuts to think because it's part of the previous gaming community I was part of. Shout out to Joe.2 out there. Artaturtle, very good Zerg player. I think he is somewhere between mid-low Hasu, high Chobo. I would say he actually plays, how do I put this? I feel like he doesn't play as confidently as he should. I think that's what it comes down to. Sometimes I think if his confidence was a little bit steadier, he would be well on his way to Gosu League, honestly. Vile Tomato and Balance, I believe, are Chobo League players. I'm less familiar with their play, but I think that's where they're at. But I still think they're C level around there. In the Terran category, we had a really strong showing. You've got Artosis, who's definitely the favorite amongst the Terran. You have Nesh, who's a very strong player, although I know he didn't have opportunity to practice as much as he wanted to. Both those guys, very, very strong contenders. If they play their best, could definitely win the entire thing. You have Sterling and Pandor, who've been absolutely fantastic. Sterling, Pandor, Semi, and Urbmon have all kind of had, you end up with these pockets of guys that kind of ascend their way up the scene, and I feel like they've kind of done that as a pack, and they've all been slowly making their way up to Gosu/Pro League. And I would say arguably, I'll talk about Semi in a bit, I would definitely put Semi in Pro League actually these days before this tournament, although I don't know that people, he's had a lot of really good showings at these tournaments. He plays very confidently and also plays to win in many instances. He will go after your weakness is the other thing, which I think some other players are less apt to do. But anyway, Artosis in tournament conditions will do that as well. In Hasu League, I think Exit has improved and he's probably in that range. He's another guy where I feel like if he plays confident, plays his games, he upsets people. He definitely did that last tournament where he took out Raz, which is a surprise to a lot of people. Father, maybe out of practice. He was a pretty decent Terran previously. Flash FTW, I actually want to put him a little bit higher. I think I actually might put him over Father. We'll see how if it turns out that way. Neon Sword's been practicing quite a bit. I put him at the lower end of Hasu League Door Refrigerator, low Hasu, high Chobo, and then Manadog, Launch, and Rice Hat. I think Rice Hat, I'm just putting him down here because I'm just not familiar with him. He might actually be a better player than this. I just don't know. So I'm just listing him low just because I don't know where else to put him. Pro Gosu, actually not a ton of Protoss this time, but Raz, definitely the top favorite Protoss in the midst of this. I feel like Raz tends to underperform at these Starcon events, but I will say if Raz plays absolutely fantastically, he can beat any of these guys in this field. He's in a best of 3, best of 5, best of 7. There isn't a player that has been at any of these Starcons that Raz could not overcome. So I think it's just a matter, it might be an issue that he's having too much fun and partying a little bit too hard ahead of time. That could be an issue, the rest issue. But I think if Raz has his head in the game and focuses, he could definitely take the entire thing. Tim is one of those guys who, a bit like Father, hadn't played for a bit of time. It's funny because I remember them playing in the same time frame, but he picked up, they consider him a newer addition to the scene, but he got up to S pretty rapidly and is pretty good. And I'm going to put Semi in the pro Gosu stage, although I put him underneath Tim as far as just raw showing on the ladder. But Semi's been having some great, he really performs well at all of these offline events. And part of that is I think just it's a testament to his ferocity as a competitor. And he is well on his way, honestly, to being considered a preeminent Protoss player, and this could be a big statement for him towards that regard. I think Zen getting towards that level, Zen, I would put him at solid and upper Hasu. I'd love Zen actually to do BSL because I think he could take a Hasu League championship easily and maybe even surface into Gosu League. Supperman and Gurthang, I know a little bit less about, but I do want to give a shout out to Supperman while I'm thinking about it. Came all the way from Norway, all the way out from Norway. So go ahead and close this and not save, and we'll hop into the game, which black screen in between, which will be Gurthang versus Refrigerator. I do want to give a shout out to Refrigerator. He is one of the guys that's been kind of in the side tournaments and just a very active guy out in the stream at large. Anyway, upper right hand corner, we got Fridge starting as the white Terran. Upper left hand corner, we have Gurthang starting as the yellow Protoss. This is once again going to be on Radeon, larger macro oriented map. Go ahead and adjust things up. I think it's the first time I've done the countdown. Problem with doing the countdown and launching in is I think it's epic, but I'm sure some people are like, show me the StarCraft already. I'm sure some people actually, usually they just ignore this front part and they're like, we don't need to hear the diggity ramblings and his slurring of his words as he casts these games late at night. We'll just go to the 5-minute mark, whatever, when the action happens, or ×2 or something like that. ×2 actually I recommend. That's actually not the sort of thing. But anyway, I've even heard some people that are like, oh, we should give the like 5 or the, what is it, the 6 or 8 SCVs or workers to start. I'm like, no, that would ruin a lot of StarCraft, honestly. Don't touch the game. Even though it's interesting how people just don't have patience anymore. I mean, granted, this has been a fact over time. As technology has improved, our patience has diminished. I feel like I'm the old guy shaking my fist at the screen, but there are some things where it's just enjoyable to be in the midst of the patience. I'm trying to think of an example. My brain hopped to like movie theater and the movie theater and credits. That's actually a better example. I feel like a good credit introductory scene to a good movie is a good example of what I'm talking about. Weird little oil spill right there. They're all over the place. Wow. Wonder what managed to stain this, because anyway, gas getting dropped around the 12 mark, by the way, for Fridge. So it looks like, and it looks like we have a pretty quick gas from Gurthang. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing. I want to say Gurthang. I'm mispronouncing it already. Gurthang is, but only sending a single probe on gas. I'll be interested to see what the build order is, or if he transfers more probes, maybe to just give himself a degree of flexibility. It would be a little bit odd to, okay, now getting some additional probe on gas, getting a little bit of mineral, and maybe wanting to just speed. It'd be interesting to see kind of like a combo, put down the gateway, get the cybernetics score just in case, and then drop the command center after the Nexus after that. I don't think that's a build order though. Usually if you're going risky early game, you're just going straight either one gate. You're just usually going just 12 Nexus and hoping for the cross spawn scenario. Fridge preparing for that eventuality, potentially getting a factory himself. He's going to produce at least the initial Marine, as he's got no information as of yet. Isn't producing additional Marines. Okay, never mind. He's queuing it up. I was wondering if he's going to save it overall to go ahead and try to make a play at a potentially faster command center, but Gurthang in the meantime going ahead and queuing up range, and his first, actually queuing up range before the Dragoon. He's got very little as far as raw army here to start, and it certainly is not going to be able to stop Fridge's initial SCV from making it into the interior of his base. We have 2 probes that are waiting on the low ground. I'm presuming it's just going to be 3 Marines of Vulture start here for Refrigerator, which is kind of the standard Terran, non-aggressive, non-optimized opening these days. Interesting pylon placement along, maybe already creating a pylon wall for the eventuality of Vultures. Could also just be a little bit of tournament nerves and not knowing. This is what my bases look like, by the way. 3 pylon, and this is, I will say it is more valuable to take this pylon and put it someplace else and force the SCV to go deep potentially, just to disguise a bit. Fridge sneaking the SCV behind the mineral line. Very nice. He's planted that command center, is floating the barracks. Now the next question, does he keep the barracks at the close position to create some cruft on the natural, or only seeing a single gateway? Does he go ahead and continue with that barracks to get some scouting information? So saw no additional gateways here. Has to presume that a Nexus was following. It looks like he is going to send a slow vulture out, and it looks like he is going to go ahead and opt to plop that barracks down to provide a little bit more defense on the front. Hasn't gotten mines out as of yet, by the way. So no mines defending here. A single Dragoon loses to 3 Marines, and the vulture would be the X factor there, but 2 Dragoons beats 3 Marines. But Gurthang still doesn't have information as far as his opponent's location. So Bridge may be getting away with one right this second. Looks like we do have mines upgrading right this second. Barracks taking some damage, and there's no bunker as well. So if these 2 Dragoons were here, a little bit unlucky there for Gurthang. Trying to get what damage he can while maintaining just shields. Vulture sneaking through. Vulture needs to make sure it doesn't get wiped out. It's taken a lot of damage as well. This Vulture sneaking forward, maybe wanting to check the natural expansion. Nexus is almost finished, but there might have been an opportunity for Fridge to sneak towards the main. I do like Gurthang. Man, I'm having trouble with that for some reason. 2 kills on that Dragoon, by the way. They were able to kill that Vulture to the south, which was a big win. And this Vulture also getting wiped out. That is big, big losses for Fridge. He has 2 Vultures that were wiped out, and that was 6 mines that were completely dropped. As not dropped, but as in obliterated. They are not going to be a factor in this match. Gurthang staging a little bit more forward is getting some more damage on these Vultures. Are these Vultures going to be able to plant mines at all? Is the next question. A bit of cruft on the front. We have a robotics and a forge, actually, being plopped down. The bunker not in range of the barracks, so the barracks going to have to go ahead and float its way back. It's taken some shots. I think range is finished. We have siege tech, but no siege tanks out. We do have a few mines out on the forward field. And it looks like the SCVs are going to be able to... Ooh, Gurthang, be a little bit careful here. That's a very weakened Dragoon. There's an opportunity for Fridge to pop out, charge the Dragoon, and maybe get a quick kill here. But in the meantime, Gurthang going to be able to just peck away at this. As long as the SCVs are repairing, they stay ahead of this bunker damage. But when they're not repairing, the bunker in fact falls like this. Now that you got 3 Marines exposed and taking a lot of free damage with that range, it's a big win. So now we got an exposed natural expansion. Luckily for Fridge, he's got a siege tank here, and one of these Dragoons is basically 2 shots away. The Marines and SCVs going to be able to pin this Dragoon back, but still a little bit of a headache. Nice vicious kill there by the SCVs. Man, they're vicious killers, slaughtering the innocents. Gurthang has dropped a second gas. He can go a little bit. This is... I'm going to say that this might be a... Okay, he is going Citadel of Adun here. I think this is going to be 2-base Arbiter. I was about to say... I want to say this is a 2-base Arbiter build, but we could see... It could be, again... Chobuli tactic area for Gurthang. I'm not sure where he sits on the level here. He's going up the 5 gateways though, and he is tacking down a Stargate and a Protoss Templar archive. So this is in fact 2-base Arbiter to play against Fridge. Fridge going for a dropship actually, and maybe wanting to sneak some vultures and siege tanks into his opponent's base. So he's just going to load up a single... He does have the 2 vultures here at the 9 o'clock location. Both of them are heavily damaged, and effectively, 6 gateways by the way for Gurthang. So he's definitely playing very heavy off 2 bases. Might get eyes on the tech. I would be a little bit surprised if these vultures were able to accomplish a lot. Do we have speed also upgrading here? It looks like we have Psystorm ahead of speed, and the Arbiter Tribunal dropped. In the midst of this, the vultures now scooped up. Unfortunately for Gurthang, he is moving out of position. Still no observers out in the field, by the way. Do we have any mines left? We do have a couple mines left. 3 mines that could be planted along the gateway. But scooting in, Gurthang being caught completely off guard by the vulture drop. Moving units back. Unfortunately for Fridge, he's not planted those mines once again. And these High Templar would have been very valuable targets to wipe out. But what he is able to see is he's able to see 6 gateways. He's able to see the Arbiter Tribunal warping in. So with this, yeah, you should definitely go up to... Look, getting a second starport, that's, I think, a mistake. Definitely a mistake in the build order here. I think that was intended to be a factory, but what he may want to do here is surge up to 4 or 5 factories. Make sure he's got a... Yeah, okay, they're canceling it. Good, good. Get a good turret coverage along the wings, and then maybe get a few vultures out on the map just to see if Gurthang was in fact opting for a drop in the midst of this. Gurthang getting 2 High Templar into the shuttle. We have no anti-air behind the lines here, so this is a very droppable natural expansion. Probe trying to wander out, but without the observer support is not going to be able to clear that mine, so that's going to be an additional delayed base. We do have the robotics, by the way. A Wraith! Fridge psychically getting a Wraith out. If Gurthang suicides that shuttle, though, did he see it? I think he might have seen the Wraith and just opted to swing around back home. A Zealot face planting into that mine to go ahead and clear up that 3rd base. So Gurthang, despite going for the 6 gateways, despite showing a posture of a very aggressive early game Arbiter play off 2 bases, is instead, I think after being spotted, opting to go to a 3rd base and go for more of a macro play. In the meantime, Fridge, upon what he's seen, has been provoked into a more aggressive army alignment. Doesn't have +1 weapons yet, but is upgrading it. Another dropship, or the same dropship, making its way out onto the map. Gurthang also making his own way out onto the map. Not a huge siege tank count right now for Fridge. Siege tank able to drop into the main. It looks like it's definitely going to be able to get some probes. Gurthang pulling units away. Another handful of probes wiped out. Fridge way ahead in the macro cycle, by the way, or in the macro space, I should say. Despite being 2 bases versus 3, maybe because of this harassment. Oh, dropship does sneak out with the siege tank, so nice little covert ops situation here. Who says that ghosts are the only units that are specially trained here? That was great play. Fridge has that 3rd base constructed, but he honestly, particularly with Arbiter threat out there, either with stasis or recall, he does not have sufficient troops right this second to cover a 3rd base. Although Gurthang is not really fielding a threatening enough army to make Fridge pay for it, I think. So typically off 6 gateway, and even at distance like such, you would see a pretty sizable economic lead for Gurthang. It could be that the probe count getting slotted between the vultures and the siege tanks slowed down a bit. Also that Arbiter, with all this energy, is somewhat of a threat. Shuttle dropping in with the High Templar, by the way. Oh! SCV obliteration, natural expansion. Heavily damaged, and a siege tank is killed to boot. We have a few SCV that were able to make it, but not undamaged. Pretty successful drop there at close proximity for Gurthang. And he is making the rest of that army a presence mid-map. So Fridge, he has the command center, but still hasn't made any motions to either grabbing the 12 o'clock or the 3 o'clock location. And Gurthang now out on the map with that initial Arbiter. Now Fridge slowly making his way forward. Stasis, by the way, not upgraded, so the Arbiter only providing cloaking. We don't have a science vessel out to provide any support, but Fridge does have the supply lead. He's also got +1 weapons. So, although +1 weapons there for Gurthang as well, but this usually mech hits a bit harder. The big component of that is, though, usually the siege tanks. We're still running on just 2 machine shops, by the way, off the 6 factories. So very vulture heavy, but Fridge is also keeping a lot of these vultures back. Mines blowing up on some of the vultures, but a lot of the zealots getting wiped out in the midst of this attack because they weren't spaced out. The rest of that army cloaked, making its way forward, but we have a bit of range to see. Vultures getting stormed, and Gurthang getting some good storms as he's walking up into the midst of this. And the siege tank count has been fairly thin. We're down to 4 siege tanks, and the Arbiter should be able to just walk its way out of this. So usually that's what you want, although you want a quick macro cycle to follow. 7 gateways up, by the way, in the midst of this. Gurthang, a pretty healthy worker count. Several of the workers idle right this second. Fridge now with that army peeled out, going to get the vultures out on the map to try to get damage done. And that 9 o'clock base completely exposed. No cannons, no dragoons, nothing. So Gurthang losing a lot of units. The Dragoons trying to scramble out to provide some defense. I think every probe now has been wiped out except for this probe that was able to shield itself inside the assimilator. Not sure how long that's going to last. Yeah, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? No. A complete probe. I'm going to call, usually when they talk about decimation, the reference is to like Roman legions where they would be expected to kill every 10th soldier after lining up whenever they had a loss. So this was a tricimate. That's, I shouldn't try to invent terms while I'm casting. Or maybe I should, and people appreciate it. But point being, the probe count was just wiped out at one of these bases. It wasn't a pure 1/3 kill though, simply because that base didn't have an equal number of probes. A bit neglected. Fridge cycling out, going ahead, unintended, gonna go ahead and get eyes on the additional expansions and drop mines where he can. Still sitting on 6 factories, still has not floated that command center down. Here he has a big opportunity with his position to go ahead and take it. The siege tank count is decent compared to Gurthang's Dragoon count. He needs to make sure that they don't stay bulked up, which a good stasis here could wipe out 3, at which point there would be 4 remaining, and the Zealots might be able to storm through that. Gurthang with a small supply lead, but definitely still has the tech lead in, and he's got a lot of energy to work with. We have the science vessel out, no EMP researched, however, and Fridge being a little bit slow. While this is happening, we have the siege tank looking for some action over that natural expansion. Gurthang slowly making his way into this. Forward siege tank defense matrix, that was a huge, that's what I was talking about. That was a massive stasis. Sorry, 2 stasis. Only catching 2 siege tanks, however, and that's going to make it a little bit harder. Gurthang actually doing a really wise thing in backing, well, never mind. I was about to say, did a wise thing in backing out, but now storming in with the rest of the units. It wasn't a great angle of attack given everything, so could have saved that army, and I kind of like that. A lot of other Protoss players, I was going to say, would just dive in and get their army wiped out for not a lot to show for it. A little bit of Psystorm, but not a lot else. Fridge has opened up a massive supply lead. Still has not landed the 3 o'clock location, by the way. And the main's just about mined out for both players. Wondering if Fridge is going to opt to do so now. Throwing out a flurry of comsats. Sees 8 gateways, but this is still 8 gateways off what will soon be 2 bases. So that will drop production. So that would be maximized production on 8 gateways. So you'll more likely, that'll cut into the bank that Gurthang has, but more often than not, you'll see 6 gateway production for Dragoons and everything else. Is that Dragoon? I think he's trapped behind this cannon. But with the Arbiters and etc. on top of it, there might be some trouble for Gurthang to be able to get as much production as he wants to. Actually, 9th gateway here at the 9 o'clock location. Gurthang wandering out on the map is checking to see that Fridge is just now grabbing that 3 o'clock base. Still has not grabbed, is moved to probe here bottom left, but does not have an observer, nor does he have a zealot to wipe out the mine just on the low ground. Theoretically, he could drop a pylon and a cannon to clear that out. Here comes the zealot. This zealot reminds me of, if you've watched the Lord of the Rings, there's the moment where you have the one orc who's Urukai, I guess, to be more proper. It has the Fridge had an idea there to sneak some vultures across to try to stop all of this from being built. A little bit of the units getting caught midfield. That's actually clever. I wonder if more players are going to do that down the line. But now able to sweep in, just sneezing on that zealot, wiping him out. Going back to the Lord of the Rings thought. He's that one guy with the torch trying to blow up the wall. Except this time it's the zealot running into the mine. Eagerly. His life for ire. Fortunately, not my life for ire. Level 3 weapons, by the way, complete for Gurthang. Still only level 1 weapons, but level 2 weapons and level 1 armor is on the way for Fridge. Fridge's main is mined out. Natural expansion is looking somewhat meager as well. and transferring a lot of his SCVs. This could be eggs, too many eggs in the basket situation, because this is a stormable area as well. Fridge now putting some craft to go ahead and provide some defense, but if this turns into a longer macro situation, so Gurthang has, see, he's down in supply, he's up in upgrades, he still has recall opportunity with the Dragoon, although I don't think he needs to recall on Fridge right this second. If he just moves his way around the map and seizes a lot of territory and puts himself in a good macro situation, Fridge theoretically will have some trouble breaking out on his side of the map, although he is approaching 200 supply pretty quickly here. And then Gurthang theoretically through Psystorm and attrition could win. Looks like a Psystorm detected. Arbiter making its way across, only able to get a stasis on the science vessel. If he had gotten a drop actually at the, if he'd gotten a recall off at the 9 o'clock, that would have been, or the 3 o'clock, that would have been fantastic. Command center again being built on the low ground. It will contribute to the corrupt here on the front for Fridge. Provide a little bit of extra supply, but it's a long way to float towards the 12 o'clock unless he's going to float it down to the bottom right. I'll be interested to see what happens to this command center as things proceed. Could be we'll see a lift of the natural expansion out to the 12 o'clock, but right now we have 66 workers for effectively one base. Although, and yeah, the refinery at the main depleted. Natural expansion has about 1,000 gas left. We'll see how we go from there. So Warthog, or the Girth, but gosh, why do I keep doing that? It's because I want to say Werner Herzog is why, instead of Gurthang, like it's properly pronounced. I'm sorry, Gurthang, ahead of time. Gurthang engaging. Fridge can't afford to lose these units. He's got a pretty he does have level 2 weapons, level 1 armor. Arbiter a little bit too far forward here. Did manage to get a good stasis, but Gurthang, now that he's establishing this bottom right, could create a nice little perimeter and effectively starve Fridge out. Fridge is now running at deficit until he either grabs the 12 o'clock or some additional piece of territory or moves middle to try to swat any sort of bases that are being grabbed elsewhere on the map. Gurthang running on 2 bases himself, pretty saturated there at the 9 o'clock, but he's got additional bases that are potentially on the way in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. And that Nexus looks like it's gonna, yeah, it should be online. With Gurthang, so checking the 6 o'clock, he thinks there's other bases down here and might be out of position to engage Fridge. Should Fridge just pile drive into his natural expansion, which is precisely what he's doing. Turning around right this second. Doesn't have a lot of stasis. I don't see any Psystorm. Well, he's got a good amount of Psystorm, actually. Needs to hit it. Good Psystorm on those forward units. These are bunched up just waiting to get stormed. Is the Psystorm going to hit, however? Zealots on the front. Do we have another Psystorm in us? Where's the other Psystorm? Looks like it was expended elsewhere. However, at the end of that, Fridge is behind Gurthang as far as raw unit count, and some Zealots are storming out. Might get some mine drags, or might even be able to just heads up get on top of these siege tanks. In the midst of this, re-engaging. Yeah, Zealots are there. Splash damage galore. And the Dragoons, wow, nice little engagement there from Gurthang. The Zealots able to press in as well. And now Fridge has a dwindling army that he cannot recreate, cannot resupply, cannot reinforce. That's the word I was looking for. He's searching for it, but I found it. And is that, he's got 4 more siege tanks here to the north, but that's not going to protect, well, he's got 2 siege tanks, it looks like, at the 3 o'clock. But Gurthang can just re-macro, and he has these bases waiting to be mined out of in the bottom left-hand corner. That command center actually playing a vital role right there, blocking Gurthang so we can't continue with that assault. But we have all sorts of probes making their way to the bottom left. Fridge again down to a single base. Little bit of minerals left, and I don't see a good prospect for Fridge unless he's grabbing that base. It's got kind of an SCV wandering back and forth. Could wipe out one of his own mines bottom right and hope for the best. These probes also unprotected and vultures scooping in. Gurthang does have some troops mid-map to maybe provide some support. Let's see how quickly Fridge can wipe out the probes. Once again, it's a probe trisummation. That makes it sound like something it's not. A lot of probes getting wrecked there. And Vulture's also getting some good probe damage otherwise. Gurthang dropping back down to 55. Does need to get workers down here still to mine at these bottom left-hand bases. Regardless of the Vulture attacks in the midst of this, it looks like he is starting to mine at that natural location, has queued up a lot of workers as well. Probe's going to rejoin, but this is basically going to give a bank for Gurthang. He needs to get those units that are in this main back out midfield as Fridge is making his way out. Fridge is now floating. Was it the natural expansion? No, it was the nearby, that heroic command center. Yeah, going to float to the 12 o'clock. If Fridge can get that mining again, depending on what happens with this bottom, it looks like it is getting saturated. So Gurthang theoretically will have the macro lead regardless. Fridge needs to get SCVs in that 12 o'clock location ASAP. We have some zealots on a mission running all the way around. And Gurthang mustering some troops mid-map as well. Gurthang, I don't know if he recognizes this as a situation. Ooh, also grabbing the 6 o'clock. He can effectively assault all corners. Look at that SCV. What is going on here? Okay, it's a group of SCVs with an angel glow right there. The ion booster of the heavens, getting them to the 12 o'clock location. That might be a good omen there for Fridge. Holy cow. That was quite interesting. Bottom left-hand quadrant and the 6 o'clock now in Gurthang's control. Some photon cannons and pylons blockading out any Vulture attacks that might make their way that direction. Fridge sealing up the 12 o'clock location. He's now mining happily there. But Gurthang is maxed out and is at a position where he can start pushing some attacks. Seeing what he can make happen. Pretty staggered line here for Fridge. Good defense matrix on that siege tank. But quickly getting wiped out. This is just a massive assault from Gurthang. Dragoons are mostly all that remains. The Zealots cleaning up that defense matrix unit, and it looks like a lot of the Dragoons getting exposed to the right-hand side siege tank line, but this is also opening up that 12 o'clock location, which Fridge desperately needed to keep in operation. This is going to rapidly get wiped out. No group repair from the SCVs. Siege tanks trying to make their way up, but that's going to expose them to the reinforcements, potentially. High Templar nearby. SCVs now trying to make their way out, and Fridge, upon losing that base, recognizing he was going to drop to just a single base remaining, and that it was going to be an endless supply of troops from there, calling GG. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Game 1, going to Gurthang. Thanks for listening.